Is it impossible to resurrect dinosaurs and mammoths? How did the world's loneliest tortoise live? And can extinct birds repopulate the wild? Watch the episode to the end and you'll find it out. Today we'll see the latest photos of extinct animals and also find out what animals scientists plan to resurrect in the near future. Let's go! Giant elephant. What do we know about elephants? Well, basically nothing special. These are large land mammals to which each of us has long been accustomed. It seems that they cannot surprise us, but so it is, only at first glance. Did you know that in ancient times there were such elephants with huge ears? According to the locals, they appeared as if from nowhere and behaved rather strangely, unlike other animals. It was believed that these were superior beings, able to listen and understand anyone, even humans. Since the old days, only one photo survived, so it's not possible to say for sure whether it's true or fiction. Let's move on to the animals that can't be brought back. One of them is the Mexican grizzly bear. This subspecies of the brown bear disappeared from the face of the earth in the 1960s. By the way, this is another proof that the size does not predetermine one's fate. In fact, the Mexican grizzly bear was very big, the biggest in its region. It reached 6.5 feet in length and weighed about 660 pounds. But it wasn't its main feature. These bears had unusual fur of grayish or even silver-brown color. It was this feature that became the reason for identifying them as a separate subspecies. As for the rest, they were quite ordinary bears. They ate berries and loved to eat honey, of course. And all was well until the population of people living nearby grew. At this very moment, it became too crowded for the Mexican grizzly. Due to the plowing of fields and deforestation, the habitable territory was constantly decreasing and intraspecific competition was increasing. The animals literally went crazy with hunger and began to hunt the nearest farmer's cattle in a frenzy, which of course people could not forgive them. As a result, the Mexican grizzly bears were hunted, which was not hindered by the government. And as soon as people worked at such a pace for only a few decades, the grizzly population suddenly dropped to zero. Already in the 1960s, research expeditions could not find a single bear of this subspecies. The government immediately panicked and banned hunting them, but as you understand, it was too late. It wasn't possible to restore the subspecies either. Black-faced honey creeper. This very honey creeper, or as it's also called po'ouli, is the only representative of its kind. Unfortunately, it was last seen in 2004. It was not a large bird, weighed about 3/4 of an ounce, and was less than 8 inches long. It was a bird of stocky build and with relatively short wings and tail. In terms of color and proportions, it was unlike any other Hawaiian honey creeper species. Adult males were olive brown above and grayish-white below. The plumage of the front part of the head and throat formed a contrasting black mask, trimmed with gray above. Because of this, it was quite easy to distinguish these birds from the others. Along with its appearance, the po'ouli had another fascinating feature. It had a powerful tongue shaped like a spoon. It was probably an adaptation for extracting soft parts from the shells of land gastropods. When this bird was discovered, people were surprised at how different it was from other island birds. It was completely unremarkable, with common plumage and a rather secretive lifestyle. Wasting time and effort to find it was considered bad form in hunting circles. But how then did the black-faced honey creeper become extinct? Probably the human destruction of Maui's lowland rainforests and the spread of rats and malaria mosquitoes contributed to the population decline of the po'ouli. Pinta Island tortoise. I used to think that species that disappeared from the face of the earth like that were just sought-after birds, bears with amazing fur or something like that. But tortoises? What have tortoises got to do with it? These land animals lived peacefully on Pinta Island of the Galapagos Islands and didn't know any problems until, as is usually the case, they were visited by humans. As a result, all the tortoises were exterminated by fishermen and sailors in a very short period of time. And that story could have ended right there 100 years ago, but still there's a small ray of hope and joy here for all nature lovers. In 1972, Hungarian scientists miraculously discovered the last of the species. The tortoise was named George. In the opinion of many, he was the loneliest tortoise in the whole world. Why was he? Because in 2012, he left this world. All his life, this poor male was alone. Even when scientists tried to introduce him to the opposite sex, put him with females, he did not agree to reproduce. There were even speculations that he was incapable of reproduction, but scientists knew that these tortoises can produce offspring even at the age of 200 years, so George's decision was something personal. In the end, no one ever got any babies from the legendary tortoise. He was gone, leaving people with nothing. The only thing that gives the scientists hope is luck. What if they happen to come across some animal even remotely similar to the Pinta Island tortoise? Now I'll tell you about a bird called the Spix's macaw. As a member of the parrot order, the only species of its genus, it lived in Brazil, inhabited plains with thorny shrubs and lonely tall trees there, and nested in gallery forests along the rivers. It was loved by the locals, which, as a result, turned out badly for it. Well, I think the Spix's macaw itself was to blame. How can you not fall in love with a beautiful creature like that? 14 ounces of charm, dressed in a sky blue outfit, attract attention. It's not surprising that lovers of rare fauna immediately pricked up their ears and began to engage in mass capture of the birds. The poor birds were caught for the gastronomic delights of local cuisine and for the international black market. People took away their favorite places to live, deprived them of their main food, and so, step by step, led the species to extinction. Thus, by the end of the 20th century, there were only 7 dozen Spix's macaws left in the wild. And in the 21st century, these birds completely disappeared in the wild. The only place where they remained to live was in captivity. Now there are about 200 of them. This was quite enough for people who took the next path of correction. As it usually happens, people decided to make amends, realized their mistakes, and began to restore the species. As a result, the population of the Spix's macaw increased several times over. Yes, there are still very few of them, but it's better than if there were none at all. Despite the fact that some animal species have long since disappeared from the face of the earth, scientists are trying to remedy the situation, resorting to not the simplest methods. Next, you'll find out what animals they plan to resurrect in the near future. Dodo. It was thought to be an extinct species of flightless bird that nothing could be done about. However, scientists have recently been able to identify the entire genome of the bird, known as the dodo, which suggests that the species could be revived. One of the dodo specimens, which was in a museum in Denmark, helped the scientists in this. The researchers got permission and were almost immediately successful. However, don't think that any creature can be resurrected so easily. At least for now, with today's technology, it's quite problematic to do so. Even the dodo, which DNA scientists have in the palm of their hands, may not be revived in theory. People will resort to the method of cloning cells, the one that's used to create Dolly the sheep. However, there's a nuance here. No one knows how to do this properly with birds because of the complexities of their reproductive system. In short, scientists already have an idea to restore the species, but they still have to work on it. In fact, if modern science fully explores the question, species resurrection will almost become a major trend for the near future. Just imagine Jurassic Park. You pay money for a ticket, go inside, and there are real dinosaurs walking around, some previously unimaginable monsters swimming, as well as crazy pterodactyls flying. I think that every person on Earth would like to visit such a place. And apparently, after a while, something like this will be possible. The fact is that a number of companies have begun to develop intensively in this direction. Researchers began to study the breeding of previously extinct species with the help of their DNA. But where can they get all this from if the animals died out a long time ago? It turns out that it's enough just to find their remains. Here's a simple example. Experts said that scientists have begun to dig up the bones of a mammoth in the permafrost. In the pulp of its tooth, they can carefully isolate DNA and then determine the genome. In theory, the same could be done with dinosaurs, but it would be more difficult. Scary specimens, aren't they? And now I'll show you some unique footage of sea monsters attacking submarines. Monster from the depths. Have you heard anything about blunt-nosed six-gill sharks? I guess there's so little information about them because people who have encountered them once in the depths of the ocean simply never come back. Fortunately, in this video, the eyewitnesses were well protected by their submarine and at the same time were able to see this underwater monster up close. To say it's huge doesn't do it justice. Being rather slow, the blunt-nosed six-gill shark is nevertheless capable of developing great speed in pursuit of its prey. Its large size and vast range make the diet of these sharks very diverse. They eat almost anything they come across. This can be seen in the shark's attempts to eat even the submarine from which people are filming it. It swam around and all it was doing was trying to grab hold of something, to bite something. Imagine yourself in the place of the eyewitnesses. Just think how cool it is to see such a monster up close, knowing that you're safe, of course. However, if you think it's possible to witness such an attack and at the same time to survive after it only today with all sorts of sophisticated submarines and other technologies, you're wrong. The first case was recorded during the First World War. At that time, the waters of the Atlantic were swarming with German submarines trying to create problems for others. But unwittingly, one of them found trouble of its own. The boat, which bore number UB-85, was discovered in a surface position by a British patrol boat in April 1918. Since submarines were new and advanced at the time, the British didn't yet have them, and at the first sight of such a dangerous weapon, they began shooting at the enemy object. But to their surprise, there was no reaction. The entire crew of UB-85 simply surrendered. Details began to emerge after the captain of the British ship spoke with the men from their German submarine. The hostages explained the reason for their behavior. According to their information, when they not long ago surfaced to charge their batteries, their ship was attacked by something huge. It appeared quite suddenly, literally burst out of the dark, cold water and tried to break the submarine. The creature enveloped it with its large tentacles and held it for hours. Only after a while did it cease its attempts and swam back into the darkness. The creature, the crew said, had a small head with large eyes set deep in its horned skull and a large mouth with sharp teeth that glistened in the moonlight. Well, needless to say, the story couldn't have gone unnoticed. The German submarine was examined at the first opportunity and the results were shocking. The plates of the forward section, which could not simply be broken, were damaged. Because of them, the submarine could no longer go underwater. It was because of this defect that the German soldiers decided to surrender without returning fire. Again, the Germans. And again, we have the period of the First World War, only now the story will be about their other boat, which was called the U-28 Schmidt. It was sailing underwater, doing the usual submarine things, when one day it came across a very tasty and sweet prey in the form of an enemy steamboat carrying many military trucks, cars, and other valuable equipment. Of course, the crew of the submarine knew at once what they had to do. They waited for the right moment, sailed far enough, and fired directly at the enemy ship. The powerful shell made a hole in it and swept it underwater in minutes. The crew members of the German submarine, satisfied with the accomplished mission, were about to celebrate the completion of the mission when the ship exploded dozens of seconds later, causing a massive outburst of water. Together with the wreckage of the ship, something strange and unexplainable flew out. This was something like a crocodile but of abnormal size. It was 66 feet long, had 4 legs and a pointed tail, just like the real animal. The creature remained on top for a while, twitching on the surface, either from shock or something else, but after a few minutes it went under the water. Maybe the creature died, or maybe it spotted the boat that had brought it trouble. With these thoughts in mind, the crew quickly sailed out of there. Although submarines are most often subject to encounters with unknown huge creatures, that doesn't make them the only visitors to the secret underwater world. Often, even on an ordinary boat, you can fall victim to an attack by some crocodile. By the way, that's where I'll start. Australia is a wonderful continent that just never ceases to amaze. Hit the like button if you agree. One warm day, which they have 7 in a week, a girl in the company of a friend decided to take a boat ride and see the area. Everything was sort of normal, but then a crocodile expressed a desire to join them. It was just swimming around for a while, maybe eavesdropping on something, or maybe it was just too shy to come close. But at one point, it did what it wanted to do. The girl was frightened, and I can totally understand it. You betcha. Such a big thing jumped on her. Luckily, the biting attempt was unsuccessful. How do you feel about jellyfish? Something tells me that there are those among you who don't care about them, and those who don't want to come into contact with these slimy and unpleasant creatures at all. Personally, I believe the second type of people. So one pleasant evening, a young couple was sitting on their own boat near the shore. The atmosphere couldn't be more romantic. There were birds singing all around, the weather was comfortable, and they were in the water together. It's just a fairy tale. However, there was something in this whole fairy tale that didn't give a normal distraction from earthly concerns. I'm talking about this abnormal jellyfish right behind the boat. I don't understand why people don't get the hell out of there fast. If jellyfish the size of 2 to 4 inches scare me, then this one, it's just something that blows my mind. I couldn't understand for sure what exactly we just saw. Some say it was a rare species of jellyfish, while others write it all off as a hoax. What do you think? Silent sea hunters. That's what they call orcas. Rather large underwater dwellers that cause trouble not only to other fish but also to people. And this video is a direct confirmation of that. A British yacht was sailing somewhere in the Gibraltar area when suddenly 30 orcas came on its tail. Left, right, and center, everywhere there were black fins sticking out of the water and people didn't know what to do. At first, they just continued on their way, but after a while, when they looked under the boat, they realized that it wouldn't work that way. These creatures were slowly biting off parts of the boat, so the best option was to turn around immediately. That was the decision the crew soon made. However, they didn't succeed because the part of the ship responsible for steering had been chewed up by the orcas by that time. As a result, the sailors didn't reach their destination, and for a long time they just sailed in the ocean in the hope that someone would help them. Hit the like button if you also thought that if you're on a ship, none of the underwater creatures are a threat to you and nothing of the sort can happen. And now I'll show you a video where people came to encounter a predatory animal themselves and almost got punished for it. In the video, several fishing enthusiasts got on their boat and went deep into the sea to encounter some big fish. One of these was a swordfish, which they caught pretty quickly. It was as if luck was on their side, and they had no choice but to take the fish and put it on board. But it was much more nimble. As soon as one of the fishermen grabbed it by the so-called sword, the fish started hitting the boat and kicked back. So hard, in fact, that it almost hurt the hand of the very guy holding it. After holding the fish up in the air, the fishermen decided to let it go, but they took a picture beforehand. I think it would be almost unreal to catch such a fish alone. At least it defends and attacks in response well. It's not for nothing that these fish swim in schools and are most often found singly. Sometimes you can even see these creatures basking on the water surface or piercing the water with their powerful leaps. And now I'll show you how sharks attack everything. This diver's doing his usual thing, filming the underwater world. Everything looked very beautiful and even serene. Nothing portends trouble, but pay attention. The diver dived with the harpoon as if he knew something. His hunch was on point. Suddenly, he was attacked by a bull shark. The diver reacted instantly and defended himself against it with his harpoon. This saved his life, as the predator was clearly intent on killing the diver. Although the harpoon had to be left to the shark as a souvenir, the diver survived and wasn't injured, which is the most important thing. It feels like this is the same diver, except he bought a new harpoon, just in time to make another dangerous dive. This time there are no bull sharks in sight, but the diver got into the house of a great white shark. It tried to lull his vigilance, just swam peacefully near the diver as if it didn't intend to attack. But suddenly, it still makes a dash and rushes at the diver. The harpoon helped again. A struggle ensues, and for a few seconds nothing's visible. But soon we see that the diver's all right. However, the shark didn't go anywhere. The diver has to drive the predator away from him for a few more minutes before the shark gets to a safe distance. But divers don't get so lucky all the time, and the following video is perfect proof of that. Dan White was in the Red Sea near the Egyptian islands with a group of divers, filming the underwater scenery. We can see that there are sharks here, but so far they're not going to attack anyone. But you should never let your guard down around sharks, as one of the divers did. He swam too close to an oceanic white-tip shark. It opened its mouth and grabbed his leg, while the other diver tried to push it away. He managed to chase the shark away. It may have looked like it bit the diver's leg off, but as Dan said, the diver was only injured. The victim was immediately taken to the hospital and is fine now. And yet, sharks attack animals more often than humans. After all, it's other sea creatures that they feed on. For example, their diet includes seals. Here's one of them, only there's something wrong with it. That's because the seal isn't a seal, it's a robot that was placed in the water by scientists. So far, the shark is dealing with a real seal, but it's not so simple. It skillfully dodged bites, quickly jumped out of the water, and showed itself to be such a difficult prey that the shark lost interest and switched to an easier target, that very robot. The shark attacked it and bit it. The predator quickly realized that this was some kind of fake. You can't get enough of a seal like that, so the shark preferred to swim away in search of some real prey. While that shark was dealing with the robot, its congeners were hunting real seals. Here's one of them. It jumps on the water and has no idea that in a second it'll be in the mouth of the predator. A huge shark jumps out and grabs the pinniped on the fly. And here's another seal caught from an ambush. The shark jumps out high, grabs the animal, and dives back with it. This footage looks very impressive. And this is what it looks like without the slow motion. This is another shark and another seal, but the fight is still just as real. This time, the shark didn't manage to grab the seal with one lunge. The seal skillfully slipped away 2 times in a row. This infuriated the shark, so the third time it caught the seal and grabbed it by doing a backflip. By the way, you don't have to swim far into the sea to see such a fight. Here, for example, everything happens right by the shore. A shark squeezed a seal out to the shallow waters and beat it up. It managed to escape from the grip and get to the shore, but by all appearances, it's in trouble. Its wounds are serious. It doesn't matter if the shark is small or large. If the creature is predatory, it'll be predatory at any size, and even in any place. For example, here we see small black-tip sharks living in an aquarium. Their neighbors are small catfish, and they're very unlucky. One of the sharks grabs the catfish by the tail and starts eating it alive. It breaks free, but it's immediately picked up by the second shark and instantly devoured. The first shark should have been more careful. But let's get back to the big guys in their native habitat. Next, we have the tiger shark, one of the most dangerous sharks in the world. It decided to teach the divers who dived to it a lesson and attacked one of them. He was lucky. The shark only took off his mask. Maybe it was distracted by other divers, or maybe it just liked the diver's mask and wanted one for itself. That's all, guys. What moment scared you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.